All right, guys, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the first How Do You Vegas show here on YouTube. I decided that I wanted to do this. Actually, the idea came to me after doing a podcast a couple of months ago with the Jeff Does Vegas podcast. We were talking about our Vegas and how we do Vegas and kind of talked about how he did Vegas. And I want to talk to different people and find out how do you Vegas. So my first guest today is going to be Jeff of the Jeff Does Vegas podcast, and let's welcome him right now. Hey, Jeff, how you doing, bud?
I'm fantastic, Dave. How are you?
I am splendid, man. It is good to see you again. I'm loving the Golden Knights sweater there. That's awesome.
This was a purchase a couple of years ago. I generally in a normal year would go down to Vegas around this time of year. My birthday is coming up here, so I always do a birthday trip. And the one year I went down without my wife, and when I travel to Vegas without my wife, stuff like this happens. And
we can't be left alone. Huh? I understand.
No, exactly. You give me a credit card and you put me in the Vegas Golden Knights store, and this happens. And I showed up at home with this. And she went, "What the hell is that?" And I said, "Honey, it could have been worse. They sold one with lights, and I bought this one." So
I'm a little disappointed in you, actually, since you kind of let me down on that one, Jeff. I'm not gonna lie.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's okay. Sorry. See, that's the Canadian. Eh?
that's the Canadian in me coming out.
You can't tell. Jeff is Canadian.
We are like 2 minutes into this, and I've already apologized. I haven't dropped an A yet,
not yet.
and I don't think I've said a boot. So
a boot, no, but that's gonna
not
come,
yet.
right?
It'll happen. The more eggnog that is consumed, that will happen.
100% positive. 100% positive. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead. So the way we're going to do this is I have a list of questions that I think probably going to get fine tuned over the course of the broadcast as I interview more and more people. But we're going to start with a basic list of questions, and then of course we're going to have some personalized ones just for you.
Yeah.
So the first question, we kind of already dropped this a little bit. Where are you from, Jeff?
So home for me is Calgary, Alberta, Canada. We are just north of Alberta. For the folks that don't know Canadian geography, and why would you, is just north of Montana and Idaho. We are the province right above Montana.
I actually
Idaho.
really needed to know that because in my head, I cannot picture anything. You're just up there somewhere.
we are immediately east of British Columbia, which is right on the west coast of Canada, and we are to the west of Saskatchewan. Really hard to spell, but really easy to draw. That province is shaped like a perfect rectangle.
Gotcha. All right, Jeff. So moving forward, bud, how many Vegas trips have you been on? I know it's a large number.
Yeah, so in a normal year, I would do anywhere between 6 and 8 trips a year. For the last 5 years, it's averaged out to that. Last year, I hit 8, and the only reason I had hit 8 was because the year before I hit 7, and my wife said, "I bet you can't do 8," and I said, "Challenge accepted."
I wish my wife would say
that. and I managed to sneak in 8 trips in 2019. 2020, of course, has been a weird year. I had 1 trip in January. This is now the longest stretch of time that I've gone without being in Las Vegas, and it is absolutely just my heart and brain and everything.
It's that way
is
for
just
everybody. It really is. I mean, I talk to people that just won't go. I mean, as Americans, can we go? Yeah. I mean, we went a couple of months ago, but like I always say, I have friends in the UK and stuff, and they're stuck. I mean, they're just stuck.
Yeah,
so it is what it is.
And we're kind of in a similar situation. The Canada-US border is closed in that we can still fly into the U.S., and the only reason we can fly into the U.S. is because the U.S. is like, "Hey, we'll let anybody in right now." But when we come home back to Canada, we're required to do a 2-week quarantine.
Oh, wow.
So I could realistically go, and I've had discussions with my wife about potentially going. I even put together a whole plan of how I could do a safe trip with masks and sanitizers and all that kind of stuff. And then she very gently pointed out to me, "Honey, you don't even like going to the grocery store. How are you going to deal with 2 airplanes, airports, hotels, restaurants, people, all of that stuff?" And I went, "Yeah, you're probably right."
And honestly, I can tell you from experience that the whole planning to always wear your mask in Vegas thing we're pretty careful, and that shit goes right out the window as soon as you get a few drinks in you. It does. It does. It does. It's just, we're smokers, so we're smoking a cigarette. We met some friends at the Cosmo, at the Chandelier Bar at Cosmo, and had a few drinks, and it was masked down. I mean, were we right for doing that? 100% no. But it's just the reality of the situation. I mean, if you're going to go to Vegas and you want to guarantee that you keep your mask on, you can't have a drink.
Well, and not only that too, but I mean, I go down, I've got a lot of friends that live down there and work down there, and they would have been the main reason for me going down there. That would have been the whole intention. And you say, yeah, you know what? I can socially distance from these people. You can't.
You can't.
No, these people are my Vegas pals. I call them my Vegas family because I actually see them more often than I see my real family. They're very, we're all very affectionate. We're all very friendly. We're all very social. Sure. So as soon as you're in there, it's hugs, it's handshakes, it's kisses on the cheek. It's everybody up close and personal. And these are people that I love and care about dearly that I haven't seen in almost a year. I'm not going to be able to say, you stay 6 feet away from me over there.
You're preaching to the choir. The only way to do this is that you have to stay away from them. You have to stay away from them. It's the only way to do that. And that kind of brings me to my next point. That is one way that you do Vegas different. Like us, we go to the Strip. We go to Fremont. You have a lot of friends, contacts, people that you know that are actually, that are actually from Las Vegas, live there. Their work is there. They live their entire lives in Las Vegas. How's that work for you?
It works great for me. I mean, I will still stay on the Strip at one of the hotels on the Strip. I've had the offer to stay at friends' places. I don't really care to do it because you have that. It takes away a little bit of your freedom if you're staying at a friend's place, right? You feel obligated to spend time with them. You feel responsible to them. I can't roll into my friend's place at 4:00 in the morning, half cut. Hey, look at me! I brought pizza from the Cosmo, from Sacred Pizza. That just doesn't work, right?
No.
So I don't want to be that guy. So I prefer to stay. But that being said, I am pretty flexible in that when I go to visit them, I will go wherever they go. And I make them very aware of that. If they don't want to come to the Strip, I will go meet them out in Henderson, or I'll go to Summerlin, or I'll go downtown.
That's pretty awesome, actually, because you've seen parts of Vegas that, honestly, I've never seen.
It's very surreal when you go into some of these areas and you get invited out to go to a friend's house or a restaurant in their area. And it's very weird to me where Las Vegas is. There's places in Las Vegas where it's like places in Calgary. It's like my neighborhood here with a 7-Eleven at the corner and a gas station and an Applebee's and an elementary school. And for us, a lot of times as tourists, we don't think of those people living there, right?
No.
It just doesn't come in. So it has given me that opportunity to go to a few places and off the Strip places and spots that are not necessarily big tourist places. It's kind of nice.
That's pretty cool, actually. That's something I think that we need to work more on is getting a little more off Strip. So, I'm sure you've seen some of my videos that we used to and might still fly Frontier and have issues. But are you a direct flight guy? Or are you a discount flight guy?
So, taking everybody behind the curtain a little bit, and COVID has kind of allowed me to do this and open this up. So for the last 5 years prior to April the 1st of 2020, I actually worked for an airline here in Canada. So for me, getting down to Vegas was however I could get down to Vegas. Of course, the big thing about working for an airline is you get cheap standby flights, which is great. I mean, you're able to get round trip wherever in Canada or wherever in the US, wherever in the world for basically the cost of the taxes to get there. The downside to that is you're standby, and if flights are full or things go wrong, you are on your own. So I became like frickin' Rain Man when it came to airline schedules, flight numbers. I knew 27 different ways to get from Calgary to Las Vegas, however I needed to get there.
Right.
If it involved me going through Vancouver, I've done it. I laugh, in the last 5 years, I've been through Vancouver more than I've been to Vancouver in the last 45 of my life. And it doesn't matter. It's like, okay, I've got a 4-hour layover in Vancouver. Yes, that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take. I've backtracked across the country. I've gone north to Edmonton and then south to Vegas to get there. One of my last couple of trips down to Vegas, I actually did one. Now these ones I had to buy and pay full price, but it was like, I have to be in Vegas for this. I went through Seattle on Alaskan Airlines with a 4-hour layover. I've been through Salt Lake City on Delta with a 2.5, 3-hour layover. I'll be honest, I'm not loyal to any particular airline. For me, it's just, I'm going however I can get there.
Sure.
But as I say, for the last 5 years, it was like, this is my airline. I will take that airline because it's the cheapest way to go. I did a couple of backtracks trips where I would do last minute. I'd buy a last minute flight on Southwest from Vegas to LA and then take our airline from LA back to Calgary or back to Vancouver and then to Calgary.
Wow. Yeah. So
it makes for long days sometimes.
Yeah, that does make for a long day. But at the end of the day, you're in Vegas.
This is exactly it, right? I mean, when all is said and done, you're touching down in Las Vegas. It really doesn't matter.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, that's awesome, man. So, all right, this is kind of a goofy question, but are you an early packer or are you a stuff it in the suitcase the night before guy?
Combination of the two.
Yeah.
It really kind of depended on what I was going down for specifically. Certain times I have a lot of friends in Vegas who are Canadians. And so I was kind of the mule, if you will, for various Canadian snacks.
All dressed
Chips, ketchup chips, and butter tarts. Those were the three things that if you've got any Canadians that watch, they're losing it over the butter tarts. Those were the three things. So if I was bringing those with me, I would usually have to pack a couple of days in advance because you had to get pretty creative on how you were going to fit those things in the suitcase. But if I was just going, and sometimes it was last minute stuff. I mean, there were times when I would wake up, I'd check a flight load down to Vegas. It's like, oh, I can get down to Vegas. I can go for 4 days. Oh, I can get rooms at Bally's for $22 a night. See ya. Yeah. And I'm throwing everything I can in the suitcase pretty much as I'm on my way out the door.
I can buy underwear if I need it when I get there. Right.
Right. There's Ross right on the strip. Exactly. No problem.
Exactly
no problem.
Right.
So yeah, so I kind of a combination of the two on how I would handle the packing.
So are you an Uber guy, a taxi guy, limo, or do you rent a car?
I am 100% rideshare. I generally use Lyft rather than Uber. It's really odd.
Same.
It's so weird. So many of the drivers drive for both. But I, for some reason, had terrible experiences with Uber. A couple of times I actually got long hauled by Uber drivers, which I know it sounds weird, but Uber was one of those ones for the longest time where you got your estimate on your phone, but if they took a different route, it charged based on the route, not on the initial estimate. And so a couple of times I got long hauled by Uber. I had a couple of really rude drivers and terrible drivers on Uber. So I really just stopped using Uber and just switched over to Lyft, and I've had great experiences with Lyft.
We've never had an issue with Lyft, ever.
And I've debated now, I know they've changed it over with the cabs where they're flat rates to places, various zones on the strip. So I've debated, from what I've heard, now there's way fewer rideshare drivers out apparently, and more people starting to use cabs. If I manage to find my way down there in the next month or so, I may give a cab a try just to see. But I know in the past, from my experience with cabs, the drivers are lunatics. The cars are usually a wreck, and it's just a negative experience all around.
And to be fair, Vegas has nicer cabs though than most big cities around the country. I mean, you go to New York and you get in a cab and you're just like, I'm not touching anything in here because why is this sticky? Why is this sticky?
There is no reason that this needs to be sticky where I am right now. What I'm touching, no reason. Yeah.
No reason.
No.
all. All right,
Yeah.
Jeff. So do you have a favorite hotel or resort that you like to stay at?
I not so much. I mean, I bounce around. For me, I'm a value guy. Canadians, we are traditionally pretty cheap. So I will usually just kind of gravitate to whoever has the best rate for me.
Sure.
I've stayed at the Flamingo. I've stayed at Bally's. I've stayed at Planet Hollywood. I've stayed at Luxor. I've stayed, trying to think, a bunch of different spots. Treasure Island, I used to stay at a fair bit. But I just kind of bounce around. I mean, as far as my favorites that I really enjoy, I've always really liked Bally's. I've had good experiences there. The rooms are nice. The Flamingo, I've had okay experiences with. I'm not really so much with a favorite. For me, I'm not a pool guy. So
we aren't either.
I really couldn't give a shit about a pool. Wherever, if the pool's there, hey, great. If it's hot, I might go sit out by it. But I'm a fat, pasty white Canadian. If I sit out in that Vegas sun in the middle of July, I'm going up like that in a burst of flames. So forget it.
It's kind of the same. I mean, it's so funny because all my friends here are like, "Oh, we'll go to Vegas in September." Like, "Oh my God, it's so hot out there." I'm like, the AC is always cranking in the casino. It's fine. It's fine.
You got to dress in layers when you're out, no matter what time of the year you're in. You got to dress in layers. If you're there in the summer, you got to have a jacket on, because when you go into the casinos, it's 55 degrees.
Yeah, my wife wears she got like the little kimono that she always throws over her shoulders. I just tough it out because I can't look like a girl and wear a jacket.
There you go. But then when you're there in the wintertime, it's the opposite, right? You got to be able to take something off because it's 90 degrees inside the casinos when you go in. So yeah, so you really, for me, as I say, I don't have a specific spot that I go to. It's just kind of wherever the rates take me.
Well, and that kind of leads into the next question. Apparently, my next question was going to be, are you an M Life or a Caesars guy? It sounds like you might be a Caesars guy.
So I am a Caesars guy, but the reason that I'm a Caesars guy is 2 years ago, I signed up for a thing called the Founders Card. And this is a Chris Kim, who's actually the host of another podcast called Faces and Aces Las Vegas.
Sure, I know who Faces and Aces is.
Yeah, Chris got me onto this thing and kind of said, like, here's this program, you should look at it. I think when I signed up, I had some kind of coupon code, and it was like $350 or $400 a year to sign up for this thing. And it's aimed at entrepreneurs and business people, and they give you a lot of deals on basically anything and everything. There's discounts on buying Range Rovers, and there's discounts on buying office furniture from Staples. But one of the perks of this card is an automatic upgrade to Diamond with Caesars.
Okay.
With Diamond with Caesars, you don't pay resort fees.
Right.
So for me, for the amount that I was going to Vegas, for me to drop $400 a year on this card, this thing paid for itself after 2 Vegas trips.
Sure, absolutely.
You're spending $40 a night on resort fees at some of these places. So, excuse me. So you're spending, like I say, in basically 2 trips, you've paid for the card for the year.
Absolutely.
So when I was booking places last year, it was a year ago at this time, my wife and I were in Vegas staying at Bally's. I paid $12 a night. And a legit $12 a night, because I wasn't paying the resort fees.
Wow.
So anywhere that I've stayed for the last 2 years, unless I was going, if I was going for an event or something like that, and the Caesars prices, all the resorts were through the roof. I went a couple of years ago for the NAB conference, one of the big conventions, and all the Caesars properties were $200 and $300 a night. And I was able to get Luxor for like $65 a night. I stayed at Luxor.
Sure.
I'm going to stay there because I'm not spending more to whatever, because I'm saving $40 on resort fees.
Right.
But every other time out of the year, I was 100% a Caesars guy. Now that this is done, now that being said, I believe my Diamond tier for 2020 is getting extended to the January 2022.
Yes, they are.
Fingers crossed.
They are. I just saw that the other day.
Yeah. So I'll probably, if I manage to get back to Vegas at all this year, and hopefully again, fingers crossed, I will. I will probably do another year of Caesars, but I mean, I don't gamble nearly enough or spend nearly enough to come anywhere near hitting diamond.
Right.
But for something like this, it's perfect. And as I say, if I can continue saving on the resort fees, sign me up.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic deal. I wish we had known about that a couple of years ago.
It's something to look into for sure.
I think we're going to have to look into that.
Yeah.
Right, so moving on to the next question, kind of trying to, my segues are awful here, by the way. But when you're in your hotel, is your room, okay? Everybody knows we kind of like a larger room. We like to have like a little sitting area. Are you a room to sleep or a room to stay guy? If that makes sense.
Totally. No, I'm a room to stay guy. And it's interesting. I was going over some of my past episodes for some best of stuff over the holidays here. And one of the episodes I did was with a guy who wrote a book and runs a Twitter account called Classic Vegas Mistakes. And one of the classic Vegas mistakes that he talks about is, oh, the hotel room doesn't matter. You're just sleeping and showering there. I say that's complete BS. He is 100% on board with the fact that that is complete BS. And everybody that I talk to, when they say, blah, 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 I'm like, listen, that room is your home base. That's where you're going in between things. That is where you're going there to recharge. Yes, you're sleeping and you're showering there, but where are you going to go in between going to the casino and going for dinner, or going for dinner and going for a show, or
Yes.
After you've spent, if you're one of those crazy people that spend 7 hours out by the pool partying and drinking all day,
Right.
where are you going to pass out and have a nap for a couple of hours?
Right.
In your room? Or if you're a single person, and you're going to pick someone up, and oh yeah, where are you staying, baby? Circus. No. Casino Royale? Really? So for me, it's got to be a room to stay. And I think for me, again, this is one of those things, how do you Vegas kind of deal. The room is important to me. I spend probably more time in my room than the average person does.
Sure.
If I'm out for the day and then I'm back and I'm going to be running out to go record interviews, or I'm going out to meet someone or whatever, I'm not going to wander around the casino for an hour and a half. I'm going to go to my room. I'm going to sit and have a drink. I'm going to put my feet up because I've been on them all day.
Watch a little TV.
Maybe fire up the laptop, a little Netflix, whatever.
Yep.
For me, the room is important.
Well, and that's the thing. That's what I always say. The people that, excuse me, the people that I think that are always, it's a younger people that are generally that are like, oh, I'm just going to go there to sleep. I'm not trying to go. I've been to Vegas a lot, and I'm going to be back a lot. I don't have to go 1,000 miles an hour every time I go to Vegas. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, I'm on vacation. So yes. Yeah, we'll get the suite with the couch and the little living area, and we'll go and we'll sit on the couch. We might even have a night where it's like, you know what? I am beat. Beat. We get there on those 8 or 9 day trips. It's like, you know what? Let's just sit up here. Let's order some food. Let's just put our feet up and watch a movie and just chill out for a little while. We'll go down to the casino and have a couple of drinks later, gamble a little bit, but let's just chill. And I love having that. Plus, if you have like the basic sleeping room, like the smallest room, 2 people in there with all their luggage, it's packed. It's not relaxing. Like you said, you come back from whatever, your entire day of out running around, and you're exhausted and you just want to chill. I hate it when you got to like lay on the bed to relax.
Yes. Yeah.
I hate it.
I would much rather have and some of the hotels I've stayed in have had great little sitting areas and nice little couches. Bally's has some of the suite rooms that Bally's have are great. They've got a couch. They got a nice big table. Even the Luxor, actually, excuse me. The last time I stayed at Luxor was in one of the pyramid rooms, and I got upgraded to one of their newly renovated pyramid rooms. It was great. It had a nice big desk and a couch and a spot for me to kind of chill out and put my feet up and watch TV. And again, as you say, like the idea of maybe necessarily having to sit on the bed to watch TV or lay on the bed to watch TV, I don't necessarily care for that.
No, just for the record, the Cromwell, in my experience, has the best napping couches in Vegas.
I will have to keep that in mind. Cromwell is one of those places that's actually on my list of spots that I want to stay at. But every time I've looked at it, again, this is the cheap Canadian in me coming out. Every time I've looked at it, it's like, oh, it's $90 a night or $100 a night. And to me, that seems pricey for the Cromwell. You know what I mean? Like the Cromwell doesn't seem like it's one of those
It's super nice. It
fancy
really
schmancy
is.
places. But I've heard it's fantastic. So I need to go and check it out.
Yep, you do. So do you have a first thing that you do every trip, Jeff?
You know,
we got a dirt dog. What's your thing?
You know, this is one of those weird, maybe this is one of those weird Canadian things, but my first thing, I will go, I always hit one of the Walgreens, whatever one is closest, and I stock my fridge with A&W cream soda. For me as a child, we had A&W cream soda when I was a kid growing up here in Canada. And then somewhere around 1991, it went away. And so now I go down there. I shit you not. One of the first things I do, I buy like 5. They're nothing but sugar. I mean, it's pure
A&W cream soda is amazing. Yeah.
It's nothing but sugar. And so I will go and I'll buy like 4 or 5 of those, and those go in the fridge in my room. And that's the first thing I do. Otherwise for me, it's just, I just like getting there, and I just like getting out on the strip and just standing there and just kind of going, this is my domain. Here I am. Breathe in.
I've been stuck in Canada for so long. I'm home now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I'm looking forward to that after this big long break. That first time of just, you know, when you step off the plane and there's that gap about that big between the jet bridge and the side of the plane.
Yes.
But there's 1,000-degree heat coming in there just through that gap. I look forward to that.
Yep,
It's
I know
such a big way.
exactly what you're talking about, and that sounds so amazing.
Yeah, I cannot wait for that.
So we were talking earlier, and you say you're not really a big gambler, like you'll never hit the diamond status from gambling. Are you a gambler? And if so, are you a table guy? Are you a slots guy, or a little bit of both?
I am 100% a slots guy. Tables for me terrify me. I'm not going to lie. I had a negative experience at a table here in Calgary at one of our local casinos. It was a quiet, like Wednesday night or some stupid thing. We were there with some friends, and I'm like, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to play blackjack. And it was like, you know, $5 blackjack, whatever. Sure. I was the only one at the table. And I sat down, and I told the dealer right away, I'm like, dude, I have no idea what I'm doing. I just know you count to 21. If you go over, you lose. You stay under, you win as long as you beat the dealer. And dealer was like, that's cool. Okay, you know that. Within like 10 minutes of me sitting down, some guy sits down at the table. There's other blackjack tables, but he sits down at the table and then starts complaining to me when I don't know what I'm doing. And I just thought, like, you, sir, are a dick. Yeah. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And
what did you take that card for?
That was exactly it. Like, that was precisely what well, you should be doubling down. You should be blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, you might as well be speaking a foreign language to me. I have no idea what I'm doing. So tables have always been a real bugaboo for me. I get anxious looking at a table. So for me, I'm a slot guy, 100% a slot guy. The first time I ever played tables in Vegas was actually just last year. I sat down, I was at Ellis Island. I went for breakfast, and it was like 9 o'clock in the morning. There was nobody around. It was like $5 tables. And I sat and I played. I was the only one at the table, and I played for like a half an hour. I had the best dealer in the world who was super helpful and super friendly. Awesome. And she was amazing. I'm getting her to explain the game to me as we were playing. And she's like, well, I can't tell you what to do, but
but
if it were me playing, this is what I would do. So it was kind of, it was kind of hilarious the way she was. It was great. But yeah, no, I'm 100% a slots guy.
Cool, man.
I just love sitting down, and it's, you know, somebody comes around and brings you a drink, and you just can kind of just pop your money in and just kind of sit there and kind of go at your own pace, and people watch and see what's going on around you. And, you know, depending on the time of the day, that's when the ladies of the night will come out and start bothering you. And, you know, they're always fun to tell to go away, because it's like, I love the attention, but I'm playing penny slots here. I've got $1.50 in here right now. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
You see that guy on the dollar slots? You might want to try him.
Yeah. I'm the guy, walking down the street one day, a lady of the evening stops by and says, "I'll do anything you want for $20. Guess who got their fence painted?
Exactly. During the election, I saw a great meme that was like that, where it was taking so long with the votes, and it was the lady leaning in the car. "I'll do anything you want for $20," and dude's like, "Do you count votes?"
Yeah, that's about to the point that we were getting to.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So slots for me, 100% slots for me.
Do you go with like a set gambling budget, or is it just kind of a more casual thing where you'll throw a couple bucks in every now and then?
It's funny. Like, it's funny how the more you go, the more your budget increases, or changes, I should say, and how much your budget for the next trip changes based on what you've won on the previous trip. It's not uncommon for me to sit down and pop $100 in and then kind of play it up. And if I go back down to $100, cash it out and be done.
Sure.
That's usually, or you start setting those goals for yourself, right? As you play, it's like, okay, you're up to like $160 after putting 100. Okay, if I get it to 150, I'll stop. Okay, if I get it to 100,
being 130,
125, I'll stop. Okay, if it's like 90, I'm stopping. Then I'm only down $10.
But the little thing's getting ready to go off. I gotta keep playing.
I know.
It wants to give me a bonus.
I want that bonus.
Had 2 bonus reels. All I need is one more. It wants to give me a bonus.
It wants to give me that one. Free spins. Come on. So I don't really go with a set budget per se. Right. I've gone on trips where I really haven't gambled, where it's like, okay, I'm going to walk through and put $20 in, and that's it.
Yep.
I also find it depends on who I go with too. If it's just me, I gamble way more than if it's with my wife, because she does not gamble at all, and I love her to death, but she's terrible luck for me.
Yeah.
We were playing in Ellis Island. It was last year we went on vacation, and for my birthday, and as soon as it was like she started walking away from me and it started going up and she started getting close and I started losing again. And I'm like, okay, this is not working.
Well, that's where the whole 6 feet quarantine zone thing started.
Exactly. Social distancing, honey. Social distancing. You need to step back so I can start winning. So that being said, as I say, if she's with me, I don't gamble nearly as much. In the mornings while she's getting ready, I might gamble.
Morning gamble. Yep.
Yeah, I'll go down and grab a cup of coffee and sit and gamble for a little bit, and she'll text me when she's ready to go, and then cash out and up we go, or out we go wherever. But otherwise, yeah, that's kind of about the extent of it.
And kind of still talking of the gambling here. Best win ever.
I've been lucky a couple of times. I've only ever had one hand pay in my life. That was it was on my trip last January, my last Vegas trip. And it was it annoyed me because
how does a hand pay annoy you? I have to hear this story.
Well, because of the tax withholding, you crazy Americans. Here's the thing. In Canada, if I buy a lotto ticket and I win $10 million, you know how much money I get?
$10 million.
$10 million. We're not taxed on lottery winnings or contest winnings or any of that kind of crap. Nothing. It's like if I won a car at a casino, I win the car. I'm not paying the taxes on it. I'm not paying tax on value. None of that stuff. The $1,200 jackpot tax withholding stuff is crap. Especially considering, from what I understand, it's been like that for 40 years or some damn thing. Now, I did read a story this week where they said they're looking at actually increasing that threshold.
Yes.
It sounds like they're talking about it could because of inflation, and they figure that $1,200 would be about $5,000 in today's money. So the idea of increasing that to $5,000 is great. That did not help me in January when I won like $1,300 on a dollar slot and lost $400 to taxes.
You hit 1,300.
$1,300.
Oh,
Yeah. And it was,
because that's just over. I mean, it's like $100 over.
It's literally $100 over. And I mean, the funny part about it was I had been playing penny slots and I cashed out with $30 down. I'd gone from like 100 down to 30 and I'm like, okay. But you know how you get that feeling? You just walk by and you're like, what the hell?
Yes.
It's $30 and it's whatever. Put it in the dollar slot, hit the bet, $5 bet. It was the first spin. Bing, bing, bing. And it starts going crazy that you've won 1,300 credits.
Sure.
My brain's still on penny slots.
Right.
My first
$13.
thought,
That's not bad.
my first thought is this is a lot of hoopla for $13.
Right.
And then I went, oh, wait, hang on. No, this is, oh my God, this is 1,300 whatever. So you got to do the hand pay. They come around to take your ID. Oh, you're Canadian. Yeah. Do you have a tax ID number? No. Oh, okay. Well, we're just going to go fill out this paperwork and we'll come back. So my $1,300 jackpot became $900 US, which, I mean, after the Canadian exchange it's like $1 million. It's a great exchange.
Right.
But it was still mildly annoying. Now, there are companies that specialize in helping you get that money back. So I'm going to be, because you basically have to file an IRS thing and get a tax ID number and blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's $300. It's $400.
Well, this is it. It's $400 US. It's going to cost me, the companies that do it charge a commission, like 20% to do it. That's fine. It's still a lot of money. So it'll take a little bit of time, but I'll get that back. I was also lucky enough on my trip last November, November, I guess it was, at the airport, believe it or not.
Really?
Won $1,100 on
outta here.
and that one was on a penny slot. That was on one of those quick hits penny slots, $1.50 bet. And yeah, it was like the second spin that I did.
That is amazing.
And it hit whatever, 8 or 9 of them or something. And yeah, it was below the threshold. And the girl was so funny at the airport at the cash out. And she's like, oh, if you'd hit one more, you would have got the blah, blah, blah. And I was like, listen, this is way better for me because if I'd hit that one more, I'd have been losing that tax money.
Right.
And I'd be missing my flight because I'm filling out paperwork.
Right.
So here we go. Just show me my money. That's all I want right now. So yeah, so I've been pretty lucky with that. Yeah, like $1,100 at the airport, which everybody was so shocked because you always hear how tight the airport slots are.
They are.
And then yeah, at the Flamingo, one of the dollar slots, it was great.
That is fantastic. So do you have, I know you go a lot, and you go for we talked earlier about how the way your flights work out. Do you have like a perfect stay length when you go to Vegas?
I can't do more than 4 nights. Absolutely no more than 4 nights. I think being where we're in the western part of Canada, if I can get a direct flight, it's only a 2.5 hour flight. So it's not bad to go. I know people, folks are coming from the eastern portion of the continent or from Europe and they're there 10 days or whatever. For me, I find that after 3 nights is perfect. When I'm on that last day, the 4th day, and I've got an afternoon flight and I'm waking up that morning going, you know what? I'm going to go have a bite to eat, have some breakfast, do a last wander. I'm done. By that, that last day, you're just like, I'm finished with people. I'm finished with the bing, bing, bing noise, the slots. I'm finished with the smells, the sights, the everything. Now, that being said, as I'm sitting at the airport waiting for my flight, I'm already looking at my calendar, planning the next trip.
When are we going back?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, next month is probably not reasonable. My wife probably wouldn't be happy if I'm back a month from now, but 2 months from now. Oh yeah, there's an event that I want to go to on this day, so I'll try and get those times off work and figure that shift out and blah blah blah. So I start looking ahead. By the time I'm there. But I mean, if I'm just going to Vegas and just going to spend time in Vegas on the Strip, 3-4 days, 3 nights, 4 days is usually good. I'm a Sunday to Thursday or Sunday to Wednesday, Monday to Thursday guy for me.
That's we like those too. I mean, the weekends are fun, but because they're so high energy, but sometimes it's a little much. It becomes like, okay, you need to get away from me now.
Oh my God. When it takes you, when it takes you 45 minutes to walk from the Bellagio to Caesar's Palace,
Yeah.
you know, you start looking going, this is dumb. This is stupid. Why am I here? Why are all these people here?
Yep.
How can I get away from these people? Screw everybody. I'm
Well,
done.
apparently you go during the pandemic because it's empty right now.
Right.
You can jaywalk anywhere you want.
You know, with this whole discussion that I had with my wife about going, and we talked about social distancing and everything. And I showed her some pictures that somebody had posted on a Facebook page this week. And I looked and went, see, honey, I would have had no problem social distancing at all. There is not a soul around, which is sad, but it's also kind of the way I like it when I'm there. I like being there when it's
I
not
like
super
Tuesdays
busy.
in Vegas. Tuesdays in Vegas.
Yeah. The one of the first times I ever went by myself, it was one of the only times I ever felt, I laugh and say unsafe, was I arrived on a Sunday night. I got there. My flight got in around 6:30, 7 o'clock. I checked into my hotel. I went up. I was tired. I had a quick little nap and I thought I'm going to go out for a bite to eat. And I walked outside of Treasure Island at like 8:30, 9 o'clock and it was dead. There wasn't a soul. And it was the quietest I had ever seen Las Vegas. And I was actually worried because there's nobody around. Somebody could grab me and murder me and nobody would know. It was just so bizarre to me. Now I really like it. Now I just, you keep your wits about you and you're fine.
Yep.
So yeah, right now would be a great time. Just again, no problem social distancing at all.
So it sounds like, as we've talked, that you generally stay on the Strip. Do you like Fremont? I'm not a massive
fan of it. I find it's a little weird for me. I don't always 100% feel safe. It's weird. I actually feel safer down there at night on a weekend than I do during the day, during the week. I know a lot of my friends that live in Vegas. They like going downtown because, of course, they're locals, and that tends to be where a lot of the locals go.
Sure.
I've eaten some great meals downtown. I've been to some great bars downtown. I don't mind the atmosphere, and I think it's something that everybody should see once. But to be honest, unless I'm either with someone who's never been there or I'm going for a specific reason. If I'm going to meet someone down there, I'll go. But I won't go out of my way to go downtown. I'm just not a huge fan of it.
And we love downtown, but I think we've even talked about it in one of our vlogs before. The problem for me with downtown is I feel like, and okay, when we're talking normal times, we're not talking right now with COVID and the clientele that's there. We're talking normal times. Mm-hmm. I have to be more aware than I do on the Strip.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's just a different element there. You know what I mean?
And I don't know if maybe I think and you're right, like with what's currently going on down there as far as the clientele and the people and the situation with, the uptick in crime and stuff that's happening on the Strip. In pre-pandemic times, I feel like the Strip had its bad element. There were pickpockets. There were fights. There were things that you still had to be careful of and watch out for. Maybe because the Strip is very Disneyland like. You kind of let your guard down a little bit more. Maybe Fremont feels a little more skeevy. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense.
But now maybe Fremont feels even more skeevy just with what you're seeing and what's happening. But I've just never been a big fan of downtown. As I say, unless I've been going there for a specific reason. One of my friends quite often would perform at the Rush Lounge in the Golden Nugget. So I would go and connect with her and her boyfriend and hang out with them. And that was always kind of fun. I like going in and out of some of those casinos. And partaking in beverages and food and things like that down there. But I won't generally go out of my way to go down there.
I can respect that. I can 100% respect that.
I can't ever see myself staying downtown.
No, we want to.
I feel like for me, I like being able to walk out of the front of my hotel and have the option of going to a million different restaurants or stores or shops or just wander around. I've never been a big fan of staying off the strip for that reason. Several years ago, I stayed at the Hard Rock Hotel. We went with a bunch of buddies. We did a guys trip. It was a great hotel, amazing pool, fantastic restaurants, great facility. But yeah, a mile away. You're not walking there. You're sure as hell not walking there at night. During the day is even kind of sketchy when you take that turn up Harmon to between Planet Hollywood and what used to be the Harley Davidson Cafe there, and you start walking up that street. You get a block away, and you're like, "Oh shit!" Like,
Right.
it's questionable, right? So that's always kind of been like. I mean, I've talked about staying at Tuscany. Tuscany looks like an amazing place to stay.
Looks amazing.
The M looks. I mean, the M is miles away. You're in Henderson practically at the M. So if you're staying there, you got to have a car. Otherwise, you're spending ridiculous amounts of money on cabs or whatever to get around. I just can't ever see myself staying downtown. No. Circa, same thing. Circa to me, I mean, I wish Derek Stevens and that whole team all the best with Circa. But right now, when you're charging more for a room per night midweek in January than the Wynn is charging to stay downtown, no, not with the element of people that are in downtown on a normal day. Like, it's just, you know what I mean?
I do.
Maybe I'm just snobby.
Like yeah, and there's no way it can come out and not sound snobby, even though we're not being snobby.
Look at all hoity-toity, like, yes, I'm not trying to be like that, but I just look at, I feel like you've put a $1 billion hotel. It's that old thing. I remember a realtor telling me once how you never want to have the best house on the worst street. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You never want to have the nicest house on a terrible street. And that to me is what Circa is like. It looks like an amazing resort. It looks absolutely beautiful. That stadium swim looks incredible. Yep. But you're charging $250 a night for just a basic room in the middle of January, in the middle of the week, with no conventions, no events, no sports, no nothing happening, when I can go book the Wynn, which is a legit 5-diamond resort, one of the best resorts in the world, and it's gonna cost me half of the price.
Right.
You're on crack. Like there's no way in hell.
I'm with you 100% on that. With you 100% on that, Jeff. And so I had a last question, but right now it's not really relevant. My last question for everyone is, when is your next trip? Nobody knows.
No idea. Absolutely no idea. It's interesting. I've had discussions with my Vegas friends about coming down. One of my closest friends, she ended up with COVID quite badly.
Wow.
I have 5 Vegas friends now that have ended up with COVID, all to varying degrees of ending up in the hospital to I've had hangovers that were worse.
Right.
Like, it's amazing how varying it is. They have all said to me, because I talked about coming in December, I talked about maybe coming in January. They've all said to me, they're like, don't rush. No rush. It'll be here when it's all done. I'm hoping, I would love to do a February trip. My big priority right now, to be honest, my whole family, both my wife and my family, they live in Winnipeg, Manitoba. That's where we grew up. It's, 2 provinces away, and it's hard to get there right now. You can fly, but do you really want to? It's a 14-hour drive. So it's, all of that kind of stuff. Our big priority right now, we've said we got to get there and see them before we go to Vegas. And as much as I would love to get to Vegas, I'm hoping for a March trip it's killing me to not go. It's absolutely killing me.
Same. I mean, we're ready. I'm just like you. I mean, we're just ready. I mean, it's just killing us being stuck here right now. We have not been. We've luckily been able to make one trip this year. We actually had two. We had the one in just last year, January, like January 3rd. We were there for 2 nights. But since then, we've had the one 4-day trip, and that's it. And we're due. Well overdue.
It's hard, and it's frustrating, and every day you just kind of look and you're dealing with the anti-mask non-believer people, and you're dealing with and then you're dealing with the people that are terrified to leave their basement. I kind of fall right in the middle of all of that. I like to believe, but it's hard. It's frustrating. And I mean, that was also part of the discussion I had with my wife about trying to plan a trip. And I said, this was where her thing about, like, you won't go to the grocery store, but you want to travel thousands of miles and go to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And one of the things that came up that in my brain was, I said, well, maybe this is my way of trying to find out, maybe I'm overreacting to all of this. I mean, I haven't really gone out at all since all of this began. I made a couple of trips back to Winnipeg to see family. But again, both times were in the summer, and we drove, and it was, June and August, and but other than that, I've been working. I haven't left the house much. I've been going out just for the essentials. I had a discussion with a friend of mine the other day where I was like, did I accidentally retire? Like, what happened to my...
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
Is this what retirement is like? Because I don't know if I actually like this very much. But, I thought maybe this was just, maybe I'm overreacting, and maybe this is my way. And that was when my wife said, well, if you want to find out if you're overreacting, try going to the grocery store. And I was like, no, I don't go to the grocery store. There's people there, and they're dumb. And so I just kind of was like, okay, well, maybe, you know what, maybe I'm not overreacting, and maybe I just should stay the F home, and maybe all the people that are going, maybe they are crazy for actually going. And the number of people that I see right now on different Facebook groups that I'm members of, and social media, and everyone's like, woo, we're going to Vegas, woo. And I'm just thinking in my head, like, I'd like to believe it's not just me with sour grapes, but
right.
I'm looking at it and going, well, why? Like, the restaurants are down to 25%. You got to make reservations everywhere you go. There's no shows. There's no, half of the hotels are closed from Sunday to Thursday. Like, why? Like, why are you doing that to yourself?
I get it. It's very, very different. It's like I said the last time we talked. I would tell anybody who's going to Vegas for the first time, don't go right now.
Yeah.
Don't go. Don't go. Yeah. All right, Jeff. Well, that takes care of the how do you Vegas questions. Now we're going to talk about Jeff. As I said in the beginning of this, we were on your podcast, the Jeff Does Vegas podcast, and I was actually curious. I know you've been in radio and stuff in your career. How does one get into podcasting?
Podcasting is one of those amazing things that literally anybody can do it. I think it really comes down to how committed you are. I mean, I think the pandemic has been amazing for the world of podcasting, quite honestly. At one point, I know Amazon was actually sold out of like microphones and mixer boards and webcams and things like that. So people were really getting into it. I mean, it's a booming, growing thing. I think the last count, there's like 1.5 million podcasts out there, and like 300 million episodes or some stupid thing like that. Or maybe 30 million, whatever. There's a lot of them out there. I mean, for me, I worked in radio for many years. I got out of radio. I was pushed out of radio like so many radio people are, and really wanted to get into doing a podcast. I had done some online radio stuff. I had done a couple of podcasts with friends. And then I thought, like, for me, the neat thing about podcasting is it's an opportunity to share something you're really passionate about, same as you guys with your vlogs, something you're really passionate about with a like-minded group of individuals. And for me, I thought, what am I really passionate about? Well, I'm going to Vegas 7 times a year. I've got all these friends who work in entertainment. When you know one of these people, you you all of a sudden know 10 of them.
Yes.
They welcome you in. It's a very small circle of people. So for me, I thought, you know what? I also constantly had people coming to me and going, well, I'm going to go to Vegas. Can you tell me about this and this? And what about this? And where have you stayed? And what have you seen? And what shows have you done? And where have you eaten? And all this stuff. And I was like, this is a podcast. There's no reason in the world it can't be. And I knew there were a lot of different podcasts about Las Vegas. 99% of them are gambling podcasts. So I thought, and not being a gambler, I was like, okay, I've got a niche. Being Canadian and not living in Vegas, there's another niche for me. So I thought, yeah, okay, how can I do this? I'm not super creative when it comes to naming things. So out came Jeff Does Vegas.
Perfect.
And there it was. And so for me, that was how I did it. The average person, in all honesty, like it's kind of at that point where you can, if you have a laptop and you have a microphone, you can do a podcast. There's some great services
100%.
out there. There's some great services out there. Anchor is a free podcast host that actually allows you don't even have to have any fancy recording equipment or anything. I mean, I've got a studio in my house here that I've built over the last few years. You don't have to have any of that stuff. This service called Anchor, it's a free service. They provide the platform for you to record stuff. If you want to have guests and record with them, they give you a link that's kind of like a Zoom thing, so you can dial in. Somebody can dial into that. You can interview them and talk to them that way. It's amazing. The big key, though, is the number of people that actually stick with it once they start it.
Right.
There's this thing they call pod fade where people go all gung ho for it, right? And I think the pandemic I've already seen a little bit of this with the pandemic where people buy equipment and they sink money into it and they spend all this time putting it together and they're like, I'm going to do an episode every day. And then after like a week, they're like, I'm going to do an episode every week. And then it's like, oh yeah, I do a podcast.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot about that.
I mean, even this is work. This is work. There's work to be done every time you do this.
Exactly. And I mean, I've been very lucky. I consider myself, even though I have been off work since the 1st of April, I actually consider myself somewhat lucky because that gave me a lot of time to work on different projects that I didn't have time to work on before. I was working a full-time job. It was shift work. It was an operations position. It was 12-hour shifts. It was days, nights, weekends. It was all this time off.
Sure.
In the 4 days or 3 days that I would have off between work shifts, I would then be cramming podcasting stuff in, whether it was recording interviews or editing episodes or writing episodes, producing them, posting them, handling all the social media stuff for myself. All of that stuff took time. So it was like having 2 full-time jobs. Now I've got the podcasting thing. I'd like to say it's a full-time job. No, it's a full-time volunteer opportunity. There's no money involved with this. So really, that's kind of where that went with me. So I've seen, it's been interesting with the pandemic. I joked with a few other podcasters and said, if you're looking to upgrade your equipment, this is a great time to do it because there's a lot of people that bought brand new gear at the start of the pandemic that aren't using it anymore. And I'm seeing a lot of great deals showing up on Facebook Marketplace for podcasting gear. So if there's anybody watching that's looking to get into podcasting, this is a great time for you to do it.
You shouldn't have said that out loud because now I want to look and see what kind of stuff I can find. Shit. I'm already in love with a new monitor.
Yeah.
All right. So you're a Vegas-centric podcast. All right. So we've talked a little bit. I know that you have been able to make it back to Vegas, as we've been talking about. So what kind of project are you working on right now?
So I've been lucky enough and been able to put together a few different podcasts, a few different Vegas stuff from the Jeff Does Vegas podcast. Kind of, the thing that's gone away from me, obviously, is the trip reports. I mean, before doing 6, 7, 8 trips a year, that's 6, 7, 8 episodes a year. Yeah. That's one every month and a half that I'm able to make it into a trip report. And when I would do those trips, while I was there, I would usually book 2 or 3 interviews. So one episode or one trip to Vegas was good for 3 or 4 episodes. I've obviously now not able to do that. So I've spent the month of December kind of rehashing some old episodes, putting together some best of type episodes, things like that. I've done a couple of episodes. I did there's been some really good Vegas books that have come out recently. So I've been able to do interviews with some of those authors, have conversations with them. I just did an interview a few episodes ago with the author of a book called At the Sands, which, I mean, the Sands, one of those great iconic Vegas hotels. Great deep dive history into that with him. Fun stuff. I did a whole episode about the science of scent because, of course, I
heard that. That was actually a very interesting episode.
It was a lot of fun to do. I mean, everybody always talks about, you walk into those casinos and you get hit with those scents, and it's like, I even joked when I talked to my guest on there, and I said, like, I'll be walking through a store and someone will walk by with a perfume and I'm like, you smell like Aria.
Yeah.
I don't want to be creepy, true. But has anybody ever told you smell like Caesar's Palace?
Does Caesar stay here?
Yeah, does Caesar stay here? It's a little weird. So I've been working on that stuff. And then the other thing that I've started to put together, and this is what the pandemic actually gave me a lot of time to work on. About a year ago, I started having this idea of putting together a real deep dive into Vegas history. And I had this idea in my head, and it kept coming back to this thing called Sin City Stories. And I thought, like, okay, I want to do Vegas history is something that I'm interested in. I'm a giant museum nerd. So anytime my wife and I travel anywhere, we try to go to the different museums. So there's a few in Vegas that we've actually gone to and been to. And so I thought, like, I want to do that. And so I started putting these things together. And the first one I put together was a dive into the history of failed building projects in Las Vegas. And I thought, like, that's kind of like, there's, stuff like the two columns across the street from Mandalay Bay and that vacant lot. Everybody kind of always comments and wonders what those are, or the Fountain Blue, the big blue building at the north end of the strip. So I had this idea and I'm like, okay, what if I do this, but I don't want to just sound like I'm reading it off Wikipedia or just cold voice read or whatever, but I also don't want to do interviews about this stuff because it's a lot of work to put that stuff together. So I started putting it together and I wrote it out, and as I voiced it, and then I started playing with music and sound effects and vocal effects and breaking it into chapters. And then I thought, well, I should really have like a website that goes with it to allow I can share some of the stuff that I've come up with from for the episode. Some of the research that I've put, I can actually put into website form. So if people want to listen to it and follow along, they can. So that was the first one. And the first one was really just kind of put together, intended as a bonus episode of the regular Jeff Does Vegas run. And I had a lot of fun doing it.
That's awesome.
And so I got a lot of positive feedback on it, and people that were like, oh yeah, I was wondered about that big blue building or those big columns or why that stuff on top of at the Venetian looks like it's a fake building facade covered in canvas. And
took me 2.5 years to notice that, by the way.
What's funny is it took a very long time for me to notice it too. I had somebody point it out to me, and I don't think somebody pointed it out to me. I think I was walking down the strip on the Mirage side, and by the thing, and I heard somebody talking about going, oh, there's a canvas on the thing, and I looked and went, oh yeah.
Huh. I didn't notice till I was a vlogger, and then I'm zooming in with the camera, and it's like,
right?
What the hell's going on up there?
What is that? yeah. And quite honestly, they kind of did. Like, that's actually sort of what happened.
Yep.
So I did that, and I thought, well, that's really fun. Like, that was interesting to do. So I came up with a few other things and ones that I kind of wanted to cover. So the Flamingo was one, and I thought that was interesting because it had, I had talked to Jeff Schumacher from the Mob Museum about, I did an episode about mob history in Vegas. And so I had some resources and some info from him, and I kind of followed that up, and I expounded on the the Flamingo story and Billy Wilkerson building it and Bugsy Siegel stealing it from him. But of course, popular legend is Bugsy Siegel was the one that came up with the Flamingo and designed it and invented it and all this stuff. So it was kind of a little bit of myth busting on that. And I did the Caesar's Palace jumps, the fountain jumps. That one was kind of, I'd intended to do an episode a while ago. I tracked down one of the guys that actually did the jump. Well, he didn't do it. He kind of did it, but not really. It didn't end well. Gary Wells was his name. He was the second guy to do it. Evel Knievel, of course, was the first one to do it. Failed spectacularly at it. Gary Wells was the second one to try it, and it was 1980 that he attempted it. He missed his landing ramp and landed and shattered his leg, and it was bad. He should have been dead. I watched a video of it and I went, this guy's got to be dead. And I Googled him and he was not. He was very much alive. So I sent him an email and I said, like, hey, I'm a podcaster, blah. He called me back like the next day. We talked on the phone for like an hour. None of it recorded, of course, because I wasn't expecting him to call. And we kind of had this plan. The plan that I wanted to do and that he wanted to do, I wanted to do an episode, a regular Jeff Does Vegas episode. We were going to go sit at the fountains at Caesar's Palace and have this conversation.
That would have been cool.
Would have been amazing.
Right.
Of course, it never happened, and the fall came and whatever, and we missed all this stuff. So I'm getting ready to put this episode together for Sin City Stories, and I thought, well, I should get a hold of this guy. So I'm looking up some stuff, and it turned out he had passed away over the summer.
Man, that's unfortunate.
But I thought, well, I got to do the episode, so I put that out. And then the most recent one of Sin City Stories I did was the atomic history of Vegas. Because there's the whole thing. And if you ever make it back and you're into museums,
I actually am. Yeah.
The National Atomic Testing Museum is it's like maybe a 15-minute walk up Flamingo Avenue, Flamingo Road up towards, if you go east on Flamingo, you walk out Bally's and hang a right kind of deal. It's there, and it's a really cool museum. It goes through the whole history of atomic testing around the world, specifically in the U.S., specifically in those atomic testing grounds that were like 60 miles north of Vegas. Yeah. And, people, I don't think, like, it was so bizarre doing the research for this episode and reading these stories about people that would drive out to the testing sites and tour companies that, for $2 or $5, they'd drive you out on a bus and give you a lunch and you'd sit there and watch atomic testing, right? Like, it was just so bizarre to do. So it was fun to do. That was actually, there was a ton of research involved in it, and a ton of production that I put together for this thing. I mean, it was lots of music and sound effects and vocal tracks and hours to produce it. It was actually probably the easiest one to research because there was a lot of information about it compared to, for example, the Flamingo. There's the running joke in the line about how the mob doesn't keep good records. They didn't keep good records. Right.
No, you hear stories. You don't hear facts. You hear stories about how it happened.
Exactly. So I would be going through, for some of that stuff, I would be going through 5 or 6 different sources to try and sort of figure out, okay, well, these 3 sources say this date, this source says this date, and this source says it never happened. So which ones do I believe? Right. Well, I'm going to go with the majority, and if somebody tells me I'm wrong, I'll change it. Right. So that was kind of where I was at.
And luckily, we're at the point where the guy who says it never happened can't show up at your door.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He's probably long gone by now. So I'm not worried about him showing up in Canada with, to have a conversation with me about any of it. Right. Yep. All right, but it's been a lot of fun putting together. It's been amazing to put it together.
Yeah, so. I'm looking forward to hearing all of the Sin City stories. But on that note, I think we're gonna call this one, buddy. What are we pushing here? Oh, we're over an hour on this one. It's been a fantastic interview.
Time's flowing, my friend.
I am so glad.
I'm so happy that you guys were able to come on my podcast, which, by the way, the episode that you guys did with me is one of my top 10 most downloaded episodes of all time.
That's amazing.
Which was amazing. I was so happy when I saw those numbers and I was like, this is great. I'm so thrilled.
Because we're awesome.
It is because you're awesome and your viewers are amazing. Like, yeah, I got a few messages from some of your viewers that were like, your podcast is great. I'm so happy that you had them on so we could get connected. So I appreciate you guys coming on so much.
It's fantastic. The community we have is fantastic. So the little crosstalk between the podcast and the vlogger, I like that going on too. So yeah, man, it was a great interview. I really appreciate you taking the time and being on here, and I loved hearing about how you got into podcasting and your Sin City stories, and yeah, that's all I got, man.
You know what?
I don't write a script for this shit. I just fucking.
It's okay. You know what? This has been so much fun, and I'm so happy that you reached out to me to have me on. Yep. I really appreciate it
because you are the inaugural guest, Jeff.
I will forever have the I'm losing my words. I'll forever have that designation as the inaugural guest of How Do You Vegas. So I appreciate that very, very much.
Well, when I get my 1 millionth subscriber, I'll send you a plaque for it. How's that?
I'm going to hold you to that. I waited to have that plaque to hang on this wall behind me.
I can probably afford to get you a plaque. So.
Awesome. Thanks so much,
Jeff.
Dave.
Thanks so much for being on, man. I do appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, take care, man.
You too.
Yep, see ya.